Understand.
Well, you can tell that the 4th of July is just another day in other parts of the world. ARS Technica, UK. AMD admits RX 480 power tuning is not optimal. It looks like AMD is owning it with the power issues with the recently launched Polaris card that last week drew some ire that it may draw a little bit too much in terms of power over the PCIe bus. Which means that snazzy new video card that folks may have gotten to get current with whatever, if they didn't want to get a GTX 10 series or what have you, could potentially cause a computer's motherboard to become unstable, or heck, if you're drawing too much current, that sets you up for damage to the electronics, which is something that I'm sure that AMD doesn't want to be associated with as Team Red is trying to make a comeback versus Nvidia. And of course, on the processor side, there's the AMD Zen, which is supposed to be the comeback product against Intel later this year. But I really have to wonder whether I should build a system based on the Zen later this year, if at all, if this is what's going to happen with the Polaris launch. So finally, after a little bit of deflection, there was some discussion last week about, well, you know, some of these review sites, the cards they had were review boards, may not necessarily be what consumers might find on the shelves. They've decided to do a driver update. That tells me that there's at least the potential that some of the electronics that causes this issue might have found its way to retail. As you know, we continuously tune our GPUs in order to maximize their performance within their given power envelopes and the speed of the memory interface, which is an unprecedented this go-around. It's an unprecedented 8 gigs per second for GDDR5. There are select scenarios, apparently, where the tuning of the RX 480 boards is not optimal. Fortunately, we can adjust the GPU's tuning with software. Oh, brother. So they're testing a driver that implements a fix, and there's going to be a new graphics driver for the RXs that's going to solve this. Now, it's good that AMD is owning this. What isn't so good is that they're releasing a software fix after launch for a piece of hardware. Where have we seen this before? We've seen it before with gaming, PC gaming, and now console gaming too, where you can't just put in the darn game disc and play it and enjoy the game anymore, because now you have the problem of beta on release. I've talked about it multiple times. Stefan Out of Continues has talked about it multiple times. We've talked about it together multiple times when I've been on that show. And not only is it still happening with new video game releases, here is an example of it happening with hardware. So, this very same website, ARS Technica, writes articles that say it is stupid to buy new video games when they come out, because you always want to wait for a patch. You always want to wait for the DLC, or in some cases, if you're like me and you're perpetually years behind on your gaming, it's probably more worth it just to wait for the Game of the Year edition that packages all the add-ons for free. Yeah, you have to wait a couple of years to enjoy a new release, but if you're behind the curve on games like I am, and considering what the new video game that just came out yesterday experience is like these days, what's the point? It would have been one thing if this stayed the case with software. But with this driver update for the 480, now we have it happening with gaming hardware. And it's a good thing that they can use drivers to fix this. I wonder what would have happened if that weren't the case. But it doesn't matter whether it's the case or not. Myself and other consumers are sick and tired of this patch mentality that these companies selling stuff, in this case for triple digits, are employing because, thanks to the internet, we can release a crappy product and patch it afterwards. It's not like the RX 480 was the king of graphics cards compared to the GTX 1080 or anything. This was supposed to be a mainstream graphics card to appeal to the masses who don't have a ton of money, but it was also heavily hyped. Oh yeah, AMD Polaris, Team Red's comeback. The Zen's coming later this year. Grab a Polaris card and you can have a really nice AMD system. Whatever. Here we are. The 480 required patching right after launch. Boy, does that take the wind out of my sails on this 4th of July. Seriously. In light of this, I now have to wonder about the launch of the Zen if it doesn't get delayed again. All this hype that AMD is coming back should not come at the expense of quality of whatever's released, whether it's software or hardware. Seriously now, what's it going to be like when the Zen comes out? Is there going to be a hidden gotcha with the Zen? Or is it going to get delayed again? Well, here's what I'm going to do in light of this. So, Monolith, if I build it at all, will be a late-year project. Maybe I'll try and catch a Black Friday sale because the Black Friday period, the holiday humbug season, is when electronics prices are traditionally the lowest throughout the year because of the high volume of sales compared to the rest of the year. So, what this means is, if I build Monolith, it should be a Black Friday thing, which means that if the Zen releases in October and AMD doesn't delay it again, like they already have, remember, the Zen was supposed to be an awesome thing last year, in 2015, future year for you Back to the Future fans. It would have been awesome if AMD made their comeback in 2015, but there were issues with the supply chain and issues with the silicon processes and whatnot, and how they make the chips and other stuff. So now we're hopefully going to see the CPU version, the FX, come out later this year. APU is already 2017. So for those people wanting a Zen system on a chip, that's next year. But I don't need a system on a chip, even if it does have asynchronous computing, where the graphics part of the chip can help with the mathematics if I have a discrete graphics card. I don't need to worry about that. I just want something that crunches numbers. I'll worry about the graphics. Thank you very much. So, this gets me wondering about the Zen's release. So, I guess I'm going to have to make Monolith, if it's anything this year, later in the year. Black Friday, between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Black Friday, Cyber Monday, what have you. Try and build it on the cheap that way, which means I don't get to take the second week off of the year to build Monolith because we're talking December now. December is very busy in my business, and this basically would mean I'd take like half the month off, and nobody where I work wants that. I'm already going to have time to take at the end of the year, like sick days I didn't have or floating holidays I didn't schedule or something. I am going to have time to use up at the end of the year, even if I don't take another vacation. Or even if I do take another vacation, I should say. So in light of this Monolith, if I build it at all, I mean, the 1090T is still A-okay. Barring a lightning strike, I have little reason to build anything right now. But we're looking now at later in the year, not October. But I will be building something during the Black Friday holiday humbug season rush. If AMD delays the Zen, my next system will be Intel. I don't care how much it costs. I am done waiting. Furthermore, with what has happened with the Polaris, I'm thinking GTX 1070 for the graphics card for Monolith. We'll see what happens to the pricing, or if there's a 480 or 490X or something that comes out by the time the holiday humbug season rolls around. I might just start saving now and get everything all in one shot around that time. But if there's any one thing that the computer hardware industry has gotten me absolutely going nuts about, it's their uniquely gifted ability to make me not want to buy their products. Should I wait for it's like Sega Saturn times a million. Why should you buy the Sega Saturn when the Dreamcast had already been announced? That's what happened in the 90s. That was a big part of Sega's downfall as a hardware vendor. And now we have an industry that is incredibly good at getting me to not want to build computers. And we wonder why sales of PCs have slumped so much. Among the mainstream crowd, it's because what they have is good enough. Those magic 2 words again. There are refurbs out there. Even if they don't upgrade them to Windows 10 from Windows 7, they'll They will still do basic email and internet on the cheap. Simple. There are some refurbs out there that embarrass what's currently available new for consumers, like business laptops, for example. A lot of people I know like laptops. They don't want to even bother with desktops anymore. Well, there are elite books out there, refurbs of Ivy Bridge systems like what I use at work, that are better deals right now because of the Windows 10 upgrade, at least till the end of the month, than the current stuff is, the cheap chunks of plastic that Toshiba is barfing out into the marketplace. And Acer and all these other companies out there, heck, HP had yet another battery recall, and consumers, it was consumer laptops, so that race to the bottom really gets interesting, doesn't it? But over with us with enthusiasts like myself, I want a bang-for-buck system, and this go-round, performance per watt is going to be the biggest thing that I look for. Because I know I can get good performance with most of what's out there. I just want efficiency. To close the gap and have a system that can throttle way down when I'm not playing games. Right now, the systems I have don't do that. They are a joke compared to their mobile counterparts. It's almost bad enough to make me want to run two systems, so I can slash the wattage way down when I'm not playing games. But the situation with this whole mess is we've been waiting for the Zen, we've been waiting for new graphics cards, we've been waiting to see if Intel would respond to AMD getting more competitive by lowering prices. The Zen's been delayed, Polaris, Oh wait, Polaris is not going to go toe-to-toe with the GTX 1080. Are there issues with NVIDIA? Are they going to exit the industry? There's all kinds of stuff floating around out there. And of course, there's the relative stagnation of the progress of the technology to begin with. I'm looking at performance per watt because that would actually be an improvement. It would take a really high CPU to beat my 6-year-old chip. It's past April now. The chip I have in this thing is 6 years old. Tuxedo's processor is from April of 2010, and it still plays ball with some Core i5s out there. Probably not the latest Skylake ones, but this system can definitely still have some punch for playing games. Upgrading the graphics card and going to solid state for the storage of at least the OS has done more for this system than any guts upgrade, motherboard, processor, etc. ever could. And the benchmark scores and some of the FPS increases and whatnot that I'm hearing about they basically confirm that. Then you have the construction equipment processors that AMD's been putting out for the last couple of years, where architecture-wise, they completely lost versus Intel, and we're stuck selling cheap chips as the only way to still sell anything. And now you've got these consolation prize processors that are coming out that are still running off of the construction equipment architecture. Not the Zen. They're being hailed as more power efficient or more instructions per clock, but it's not Zen. Zen is still going to blow this stuff away. So there's processors coming out from AMD right now that are like the Sega Saturn of processors. This whole thing reminds me of Sega Saturn times a million. This industry does an extremely good job of getting folks like me to wait and not buy stuff immediately. And then we wonder why PC sales are slumping. Mainstream crowds are the same way, but the mainstream crowd just wants something that does the basics. They just want to sign onto the internet, browse the web, do email, maybe play some Farmville, or that's even a dated reference nowadays. But yeah, some social games or casual games, but that's it. So what reason do they have to buy a new system? This industry has dug itself its own hole, and until it decides to start wowing people again, nothing's going to change. And that's the way it is. I hope AMD can fix this little mess with the Polaris cards, and I hope they can get out of this habit. Because when hardware starts being patch mentality beta on release, just like software, that's when you know something has gone dreadfully, dreadfully wrong. This is MultimediaJay, signing off. Thanks for stopping by.